This episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast is brought to you in partnership with ministryleague.com. We would love for more people to discover this show, so please rate and review us on iTunes or your podcast provider. Feel free to share on your social media and subscribe at benandtravis.com for the free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living. Welcome into the Helping Healing Humor podcast with Ben and Travis. We're thankful for you joining us for part 2 of our discussion tackling the dangers of lust. We hope that it's beneficial for all those who hear.
And I think the main point I want to make is that, once again, God can redeem these situations. Absolutely. It's so, you see people all the time who get caught up in these things and they feel like their life is over. And I can speak from experience that, I've had struggle. I've dealt with the divorce side. I've dealt with this, the need to be accepted or to be in control of a chaotic situation. And man, God has just worked wonders in my life. To some degree, I think as long as I've got a pulse, there'll be some issues there. Yep. But the beauty of it is that God is more than willing to come alongside us. And I think that even if it's an awkward conversation to be had, I don't think we looked forward to this podcast per se, not as much as we do others. But, God is, as we've said, He's big enough for your anger. He's big enough for all of your emotions and the things you feel. He's not shocked that you have issues with these things. But I think that Satan loves to play in the awkwardness of it and the fear of it and the guilt of it. And we have a Savior who knew beforehand. He gave us the sexual desire to be in a healthy relationship, to be experienced. And I think that a lot of times we've allowed the shame that's attached to an unhealthy use of that desire to keep us from fully enjoying what God has given us as well.
Yeah, so I think there's two things there. One, that we were talking about before is some of these things that we do whether as a result of difficult stuff that's happened or just because we made a dumb decision. We've all made those, and we've talked about before. Thankfully, we did not have the internet as much of a part of our lives and cell phones as much of a part of our lives as they do now, because we'd have probably been in a lot of trouble. But how many times are we seeing things that are surfacing from 10, 20 years ago that people have said or people have done? So the one side of it is there's consequences to the things that we do that we may have to live with for a long time. But on the other side of that, there's forgiveness for those things, and the world may bring them up and they may keep surfacing, but God's forgiven us. And as a church, I think that's one of the things we've gotten better at. Some people may not think so, but I see a big difference from today when I've seen whether it's just members or ministers or elders or different people who are struggling with different things. The church seems to be way more forgiving than it used to be on a lot of those levels, because I remember growing up, people being very they were ostracized in those moments.
Oh yeah,
more so than I'm seeing today. A lot of times I see churches try to rally around and help and encourage and strengthen people. We're not perfect, but I don't know that any group of people are. But there's consequences, but there's also forgiveness, and there's also a place that God will forgive you. The church, the ones we're supposed to forgive, and we understand that. I can't say that everybody will, but you do have that place where you can come even when it's a struggle.
And Satan hates. That's one of the reasons I want to do this. Satan hates when we shine a light on those things.
Mm-hmm.
Because it decreases his power over the situation when the light shines on it. And
so let's talk about that, bringing it kind of back around. And I know I mentioned this at the beginning, some of the things that were helpful to you when you were going through the divorce, your parents going through the divorce, and then some of this stuff you struggle with. What did get you to where you are today? Like, what helped you along that journey?
Well, I think communicating about it, one of the things when I did get dating pretty serious with Whitney, that was one of the first things we had a conversation about, that, hey, I've had a struggle with this. The second thing, once again, is communicating with the church. Even today, even up till just a few weeks ago, I'll get up and I'll preach and I'll mention, hey, we've all got things we've struggled with. I've struggled with lust. I've dealt with that. I may always deal with it, but the church, you guys have been such a blessing to me. Whitney's been a blessing to me. So I think the first thing is to find somebody that you can have accountability with.
Yeah.
To that first time, because it's just like sin. It's kind of that lever that might be rusty, and you push it down, and all of a sudden it gets loose, and you do it a bunch. It's the same way the other way. Like, hey, I can talk about this. There are people I can go to, and I think that was number one. That once you realized, hey, I'm not alone in this, and not only, it's kind of like Psalm 51, I believe it's David writes, and he says, "You're going to forgive me of my sin, and I'm going to teach other people."
Yeah.
That's you can almost feel that excitement build in the verse, like, man, this is awful and this is terrible, but I know that you're going to forgive me. You're going to give me a clean heart, and then I'm going to turn and teach others and help others through it. And so that was be number one, is finding someone that you can communicate about it with. And
everything you've been through qualifies you to help other people through it. So when you've gone and you've done that, you've gone through so much in your personal life that I've seen you, and part of the podcast is born out of a lot of that, those physical and emotional and spiritual struggles that we go through. Then 2 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 3, we comfort one another with the comfort with which we ourselves have been comforted from God.
Yeah.
So we take that and we try to help others with it. And so I think that's what both you and I have tried to do through the years is learn from the things we've been through.
And also be that person that when people are willing to share, whatever it is, whether it's this or some other deal, to not be stunned. I don't know if that's the right word. I mean, shock is involved, we're to get disappointed, but to also be the person who comforts them and go. I tend to go to people when they've come forward and I'm like, thank you for encouraging all of us, because it's not shocking that you've got struggle. It's shocking that you're willing to share it. And that's something to be celebrated, that you're willing to admit that I've fallen short in whatever situation and whatever it is, because then you can move on. We can start that process. And as Ben said, you may deal with the consequences the rest of your life, but you're at least willing, and I imagine as a counselor, that goes a long way.
Yeah.
People come in willing to change. They're wanting to change.
And what I was going to say is there's some things, one, the three-legged stool that we talked about, the one thing that you can change is the anonymity part. You can't change the affordability. You can't change the accessibility, but what you said was go talk to somebody. And that's how you can change the anonymity. It will not remain anonymous if you are talking to people about it. Yeah. So there are groups, if you're struggling in that area. Covenant Eyes is a group you can go on. And that's not the only one. There's several like that, I believe, where you can go and you can have it put on your phone. Apps put on your phone, your computer, that if you try to look at anything, it sends it to an accountability partner. So that accountability is a fourth A. The accountability is what we need. So that it may just be me calling up Travis and saying, "Hey, how are you doing today? How have you done today? Let's talk about it." Having that in AA, they call sponsors. There's SA groups. There's groups. I'm trying to remember the name of Celebrate Recovery. Is a group that meets that deals with this topic specifically. So if you really need that group, if you don't have people at church or people in your family that can help you, there's those things. Covenant Eyes will send those things to friends who can then call you and go, "Hey, I saw where you tried to pull something up." And then sometimes it's for some people it's just the ability to talk to them and go, "Hey, I've been having this struggle." So find a way to kick that leg out from under it. Let it be out in the open. Talk to people about it. Hey, this is a struggle of mine. Will you help keep me pure and help me? Probably not a great idea, by the way, if you're married. I don't think the accountability partner necessarily needs to be your spouse. So that ends up being more of a mother or babysitter type figure. So that and it's, it comes with a lot more shame and guilt and whatever else. You need somebody who a friend of yours, same sex, would be best. Because if Travis is keeping me accountable, it's better than some girl that is not my wife.
Yeah.
The one that's hearing about this, that's just never healthy either. So somebody that you trust, that you can, that will call you, that will challenge you, that will talk to you, and that will help you. And so that's the very first step that I usually do in encouraging people who come in for counseling, is make sure some people know.
And I think along those lines, depending on the relationship, you want to have a strong relationship with this person. But if you know somebody who's going through trauma, I think the question that you can ask them is, hey man, how are you coping with this?
Yeah.
Like just checking on people, making sure it's a healthy way, because we all cope in different ways. And there are ways that are healthy, there are ways that are unhealthy, and sometimes it may just be straight up. If you've got that type of relationship, hey, I know you're going through something. How are you coping with it? I think as a youth minister, that might be a decent approach with somebody that you have a good relationship with. I know that's usually the role Will fulfills. He'd be like, all right, so as a youth minister, how do I need to handle this? And, that may be a simple question. You don't have to say it just like that. But they're coping somehow.
Yeah.
Everybody's coping somehow. Sometimes I've said, if you need to put your Christmas tree up right now, feel free to do that if that's what you need to do to cope. But there are healthy ways, there are unhealthy ways. And as we stated before, Jesus is pretty explicit on don't trust your heart.
Well, I've heard Lonnie say several times, I didn't create it. I can't change it. How do I cope with it? There's a lot of things in life that hit us that we don't create. We weren't a part of making that happen. When you were a kid, you didn't have a choice about the divorce of your parents. You couldn't really change it, but you found a way to cope with it. Might have been an unhealthy way to cope with it, but you found a way to cope with it. And so what we try to do and what we want people to do is find healthier ways to cope with it. So, just a couple of things just to help you, just a reminder about some of that, what I've heard, and you can help me if maybe I've missed something, but, you need those people to talk to. You need to cut out whatever it is. If Facebook, if Instagram, if your internet, is becoming a problem. Parents, if you see this with your kids, flip phones, they still have them.
I did that a few years ago. I went to a flip phone. It wasn't really with this, but I just went from one because I was too connected.
Yeah.
And I went about 6 months with a flip phone, and it was a nice little reset. May need to do it again.
Put your computer in in the living room. Nobody's allowed on it except when everybody's in the room.
Yeah, I mean, I would, dude, and I'm not your kids' parents, but man, I just would not be in their room. No, nothing that can connect. They just don't need that level of privacy. That's my personal opinion. You do what you need to do, but man, that would be a huge thing that I would check. I would make sure.
So, making sure those things are, safe, taking care of, having somebody else know about it. And then I think, what else would you say would be important in that struggle? Anything else?
I will say in my teenage years, playing a sport was huge because I came home and I was tired and I went to bed. I didn't have a lot of energy, a job, and I'm not saying you need to stay busy all the time because you can't. You'll run yourself ragged, and that's not a great way to cope either. But, spend time with people.
Yeah.
Spend time with people
Having
that you
other
trust.
Other
outlets.
Yeah, is a good thing.
Working out, lifting, doing those things, finding a hobby that and you typically know when you're slipping into some situation you don't need to be in, and keeping yourself out of that circumstance.
Yeah.
And of course, praying and studying God's word and realizing, as I've stated again, what feels good is not a qualifier of what is good. I guess in some levels, not trusting yourself. Don't put yourself in a situation, and that goes for any sin, that's going to make the situation worse and make it harder on you.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that drives any addiction is helplessness or shame. Guilt, shame, helplessness. So, when those things are kind of at the root, then you have to start, looking for and finding some ways to understand that, hey, those things, I messed up. Don't let that drive you back into it, because that's,
man.
well, I messed up, so might as well whatever.
Yeah.
So, making sure that's where that accountability guy comes in and goes, hey man, I know you messed up. It's okay. Let's start all over again. Let's get to the point. And when you start feeling the shame or the guilt or the helplessness, that's actually when you start looking for those things. It may take a couple of days. It may take some time.
I can't agree with you more, because it was a hopeless feeling, and it was that cycle. Man, I don't want to do this, and then it happens.
I've been there.
And it's like, it's almost like it takes weeks to get over it and get your mind straight back to all you did was hit the reset button. And that's kind of how life goes.
Yep.
It really is, and that's the beauty of that verse. His mercies are new every morning. And he knows all the evidence. He knows more than anybody else. And yet he chooses to forgive. And man, I can't agree with what you said there anymore.
And if you're looking for some reading material, if it's something that's really been something that you've struggled with, or somebody that's struggling with, it's some deeper stuff. I wouldn't necessarily hand this to a teenager per se, but as a parent, just to kind of understand it, Patrick Carnes has a lot of material out about this, and so. Finding some of his stuff. I'm saying one of his books was deeper. I think there's probably some different ones, but he's studied this and he's talked about this on a lot of different levels. And so, if you just want some more reading level or more stuff to read on it, then I think that would be a good resource. Covenant Eyes has a lot of good resources on the chemical stuff that happens in your body and the reason that stuff is so addictive, why pornography is so addictive. They've got a lot of good articles and a lot of things on it, so you can go there and get that free material too. So just, help yourself be knowledgeable as to the whys, as to what's happening. That's going to also help you to just stay out of the shadows where we've been talking about.
As per tradition, Benjamin, throwing this one at you pretty good. A little fun question to wrap up our episode. Basketball season has kicked up. Pretty excited about the Tide. They're 2-0. That probably won't last because they got a murderous out-of-conference schedule. But I'm thinking, if we're going to put together a 5-man starting for basketball,
okay,
out of the Old Testament, who we going with? I think Goliath's got to be your center, right?
Goliath's my center. I mean, there's no doubt that Goliath's going to take that role. Oh, man. I'm trying to remember. One. Yeah, I would go with that. What's the guy? Is it a Hazel? Is that his name that's so fast that runs through the spear? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, wow. Man, Ben going deep there.
I'm just thinking about he's got some speed.
Yeah.
I like the speed. I was going to go with John because John beat Peter, but then you said Old Testament.
Yeah, Old Testament.
Man.
We have to do, so that's 2.
So I'm going to say 2. Well, I'm going to look that one up while you talk. But I think that, because you just caught me off guard with that question.
Yeah, I know. I think I'm going to have to go with David because he's just a winner, man. He's just a winner. He may be that guy, kind of like Tebow. He's not a real practice guy, but
he's there.
When the lights turn on, I just feel like he's going to be a gamer, maybe a point guard. Who knows?
Yeah, I
point
like
guard,
it.
Got aim, got some good, maybe ball handling skills. David. So
it is. I had it. It's a Sahel. I think I said a Hazel. It's Ashahel. So he is the youngest son of Zariah. He was the nephew of King David, younger brother of Joab, David's general, and Abishai. So he was killed by Abner. He was chasing after Abner, and Abner kept telling him, quit chasing me, quit chasing me, quit chasing me, and he wouldn't quit chasing him, and so he stuck his spear out, the blunt end of his spear, and Hazel ran through it, and it killed him. Nice. So I'm thinking he's got a lot of, he's got some endurance, he's got some speed to go through the blunt end of a spear.
Well, you don't want him on your football team because you can get a flag for spearing.
That's true. No, that would be Abner.
Abner.
Anyway,
Abner would be
so I would go with
disqualified.
I'd go with him. So you can look him up sometime, but I don't know. That one popped in my head. So we got
All right.
David.
Goliath, and there may be some issues there. Teamwork, but teamwork makes the dream
Something
work.
to do with spears.
All right, I think you're up. So we need 2 more.
We got David, we got Goliath, and we've got Assael. Oh man, let's see, who else would we go with? What do we need? We need some strength.
We need a,
why not Benaiah? I mean, Benaiah is he killed a lion in a pit on a snowy day.
nice.
So he's got some gumption. He's got some.
Okay, we need
fight to
we
him.
got the grinder. We got
So
the center.
that's probably a forward.
We probably
right
need
there.
us a 3-pointer. We need somebody to hit a 3.
Somebody that can hit.
So who's got
three-pointers.
good target practice? I mean, we've already got David, so he probably could hit some 3s. He might be a long range guy,
Yeah.
but I'm thinking one more long range.
Long
Jonathan
ranger.
threw the spear to
Yeah.
signal
Or the
David.
arrow. Yeah, he shot the arrows.
Arrow.
Yeah. You had the sons of. Oh, who was it? See, we're trying to that they could sling a stone and cut a hair. You remember that?
There you
they
go.
could sling
There's
a
your-
stone.
There's your Steph
so
Curry.
they could sling a stone.
3-point city.
And yeah, I mean that's pretty. I would go with them.
So we've even got our 6th man off the bench. We'd be swapping. Are they brothers?
I think there was like a whole group of them. So this is Judges chapter 20 and verse 16. Among these soldiers were 700 select troops who were left-handed, and each one could sling a stone at a hair and not miss.
All right. So any of those guys.
Any of those 700 guys. We're just going to take one of them.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was 700.
There you go. So
that's a pretty solid
there's
group
your
of
5
people.
starters, group of starters for basketball. Well, Ben, I
it.
appreciate the discussion.
Yes, sir.
Ready to thrive in your ministry work? Heritage Christian University has just released their upcoming spring semester course offerings. Courses such as History of the Bible with Wayne Kilpatrick, Marriage and Family Counseling with Jeffrey Brothers, or Acts with Justin Guin. To see all the classes available, visit www.hcu.edu or email media@hcu.edu for more information. Nearly all of these classes were created to be taken remotely, so no matter your schedule or location, you can be a part of learning more about the Bible this year. The deadline to apply is December 1st, so don't wait. Apply today. Thanks for being with us for this episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast. Be sure to download our free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living, at benandtravis.com and receive all of our Helping Healing and Humor extra content directly in your inbox. Until next time, look for us at the same Ben and Travis time, same Ben and Travis channel.